thought it might be helpful to do a basic video on the 970 console. As you can see, there's various numbers, and then on the right hand side you've got various buttons. This is your important button, the bottom one. This one is enter, yes, okay. If you're in a different screen and it's asking you something, or you want to confirm that that is the choice you want, you must press this one. This takes you back to the main menu of all the icons. This one toggles the screen, and I'll show you that in a minute, so that you can see different views. When you're knitting, you can see the actual stitch pattern you put in, or you can, when you're using the garment designer, you can make the stitch figures much bigger so you can see them better. And this does give you a handy hint, allegedly. So I'm going to press that now and see what happens. It may not, because we're not actually in something, but yes, it's come up. It says you can set row counter to number which you wish, which is fairly obvious. So we'll toggle that back off again. So I'm going to press enter, which is yes, okay, confirm. We want to go into this, which is the row counter. And it's saying row counter setup. Now it's on 0 at the moment, but you can put in any figure you want. If you want to miss parts of a garment out, I don't know, you don't want to do 10 rows of a garment design you've got in, so you want to start on row 10, or you've forgotten to have your stop screen on when you've been knitting rib and it's chunked up, so you want to go back to the beginning. There's various ways of doing that, but yeah, it's just row counter setup. I have a stuck on row counter on my machine, so I don't have to turn the console on just to count rows when I'm doing stocking stitch, which might be something you want to bear in mind. It's only stuck on with blue tack, but it works fine. So if you're happy that it's going to start on row 0 or whatever row you've put in, again, you must press enter, which fingers are in the way. You must press enter to say, yes, I accept that. If you don't, the machine ignores you because you haven't said, yes, that's what you want. So enter. The next one along is a pattern row setup, and let's see what this tells us. This says you can set the pattern row number where you wish to start. Again, very useful if you are using either a pattern you've input yourself or an inbuilt pattern and you don't want the bottom border for whatever reason. You just go in and you set it for the row number of the pattern that you want it to start. This is your knitting room. This is the most important. You must always go back into this if you actually want to start knitting anything. This, again, you have to press enter to go in. This is where you position a pattern. Now, positioning a pattern just means selecting a pattern. So you go in, you decide which carriage, which pattern range you want. This is obviously an inbuilt pattern I put in. I can't remember what it is. 904. It's telling me where the first needle position is. It's 42. It's showing me that I've actually got two. As you can see, the V2 means I've got 2 variations in, and I'm suspecting this is a double bed jacquard that I've put in. It is. So if you then go back to your knitting screen and press yes, it's showing you that pattern, which obviously doesn't mean much because it's a double jacquard, and I might find another one in a minute just to show you. But if you then toggle the screen, it's actually showing you on a grid there, if you care to click along and find it, where the there I can see where the pattern actually is. If you toggle it again, it brings you back to the pattern. So we go back into main menu. Now if you actually wanted to, before I forget, if you actually wanted to toggle up a few rows, put the stop screen on, and hold the up bit. You can go up and you can see the actual pattern numbers changing and the row counter changing. If you want to put that back to 0, I'm going to try if my fingers will stretch. In the stop screen, press 0 and the down arrow till it beeps and it's gone back to 0. Go back to the main menu. We were in the positioning program. Press enter. If you no longer want that pattern positioned, you go along to the little one with an eraser. That's an eraser, believe it or not. Press enter. Positioning cancel. Click across to OK and click enter again. Now if you now go back to the knitting screen, you will see there is nothing in there. There's no pattern there at all. It's just sitting there on the row counter. You have not deleted the pattern. You have merely not selected the pattern. You've deselected the pattern. The pattern is still there in your pattern memory. So back into positioning again. The next one is for garment positioning. And this is where if you have a pattern, you've drawn a garment, it's going to now ask you to put your tension square details in. Square width, I'm just going to guess here that I've measured it with the centimetre ruler and it came out at 13 centimetres for the stitches, 40 stitches, and it came out at 15 centimetres for the 60 rows. Which garment number do I want to use? Well, I've got 28 in here. You have to write them down in a book because I've got 2 Brother 970s, so I have to keep 2 sets of records, and I've no idea what garment number 28 is, but we'll just say yes. Oh, let's try 27. No idea what it is. I'd have to check my book. And it says it hasn't been completed. So that's where you have obviously not finished that one off. So I will go back in. That's the only trouble with this is you have to keep clicking along. So we'll try that one again. It's kept my tension measurements in. Let's try 28. I think I've been fiddling about and may have taken some out. There, this one is. And it's telling me the garment position is 51 left and 51 right is the maximum. Because if this is a sleeve, it's telling you what the maximum stitches will be. You then click along to knitting. And there's my garment. Yes, left 51, right 51. Now you can, as I say, you can toggle this screen with the screen toggle. And it comes up nice and big, left 51, right 51. You don't have the row counter then, unfortunately, but at least you can see it if it changes. And I'm going to, because we're on the stop screen here, I'm going to click up and you can see, hopefully there's some change on this. On this garment. I'll take it off that just to make sure I'm at, yes, I'm up to row 51, 52. This might just be a square. Oh, now it's beeped at me because it's going to do something. Oh, that's told me I put when I put this in, I separated out the upward lines so it would tell me when the I needed to put a yarn marker. And I'm assuming, because this appears to be a great long rectangle, it's the halfway mark. Not picked a very good one here to show you. Anyway, you get the idea. If you toggle, you can see in large letters what needles you should have cast on. So go back to the main menu, back into positioning, and that is the same as the pattern one, stitch pattern one. We don't want that pattern positioned anymore. We want a different one. It has not erased your garment design. It has only erased it from the screen for the moment. So we go back into this and see what else we've got. And that is all there is on the positioning program. So you go back out to main menu and you go to the one with the stitch pattern with the query. Press enter, and this is where you enter pattern variations. Now I don't know these off the top of my head. I have to refer to my manual, but there are various variations. That one looks as though you've mirrored it. That looks like double width. That looks like upside down. That looks like double length. No idea what that one is. No, that could possibly be double length. I don't know. I've got it switched on. Now, if you don't want it switched on, you press the number 1, which is a blank. It's no longer switched on. If you want a variation on, you press and it's on. But so you have to refer to the manual because I can't remember them unless I've used them. And that one, I believe, is the one to convert a Fair Isle pattern to double jacquard. It's called the muck rib. And I'll try switching it off and see what happens. Yes. And the one next to it, I believe, is negative. If you want a negative of something, i.e. change the background to the foreground, you would put that on. That's on. And then switch it off. So if it's ever doing anything strange and you know, you feel that it's knitting the background as the foreground and vice versa, check that you've got your pattern variations off. The next one along is designing, and this is where you put your own stitch pattern in. If you have a stitch pattern already in and you want to alter it, and this is where again your own stitch pattern is where you completely erase it this time from the memory. Not the built-in ones, but ones you put in yourself that you don't want any longer. This is where you design a garment, and I've got a video on garment design. This one is where you want to tweak a garment design that you've got. Bear in mind that if you change a line that you've put in, the measurement of it or the type of line, it wipes out the rest of them. So it's not as simple as just changing one line. But that's where you can change a garment, tweak it slightly. This one is where you completely delete a garment that you've put in. So again, it will take it off your system completely. Back to main menu. That's all the designing. Then we come over to the more interesting bits, or not, as the case may be. This is where you put in your memo information. Now, if you wanted, you would need this for when you use the lace carriage. If you're designing your own lace pattern, you need to, and it's asking me which pattern I want to put the memo information in, or putting in where a colour change is, so that it will flag up on your screen where to change the colour on a pattern. If you're doing a lace pattern, you would put in the number 2 on the row, on the last row where you have to use the knit carriage twice. This one is something I've never used, and I've just pressed it's asking you, I believe, and I'll just check the little hint button here. Yes, you can enter data on specific row in a computer. So if you wanted to enter something on a specific row, you would put it in there. And this one, again, I'm not sure what it is, but again, I have to read the... You can recall data of memorised row to display. So that's handy. And then we come across again. Now this is where you, if you are downloading from DAC or Image to Track, you would go in here. And basically just ignore that these were made long before we had things like CDs and connecting to a whatever. This is cartridge to knitting. So if you've got a PPD and you're uploading from a cartridge, it goes in there. The next one is when you are downloading from the console, saving a pattern onto a cartridge. And that's where you want to erase a pattern from a cartridge. This is the one that you will, this section with the disc. It says disc to disc, and this is where you're saving from one disc to another disc. Well, we don't really have floppy disks anymore, but hey ho, it's there. This one is disc to knitting, and this is the one you actually use when you are downloading from DAC, Image to Track. It says a disc, but because you've plugged your DAC or Image to Track into your FB port on the side of the console, that's classing it as a disc. So don't worry yourself about that one. This one is where you are uploading a stitch pattern to DAC, which I have done. It's something I've downloaded from somewhere. I've put in, say, Image to Track, and then I'll upload it. And this is deleting something that you've put onto DAC or something like that. Back to main menu, and that one is where you select which language you want it in. I'm not sure what languages it's got. Oh, we've got Japanese, English, German, Dutch, Spanish and French. And as I'm terrible and can only with difficulty speak my own language, I'll stick with English. And this is again where you must press the enter button, not the main menu, which is where some people are getting confused. I'm saying, yes, I want English. I'm in main menu, so I need to click back to the bits we're more familiar with. And hopefully that's been a little bit of help on the main console.